Okay, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are Inspire Millions, and I have a very special guest today. Her name is Penny Michelle Watford, and we're going to have an amazing discussion about her extraordinary life on how beating addiction will empower your vision. So this is an extraordinary journey that Penny has traveled in her life. Such a beautiful story. And funny enough, when we actually first spoke on together last week to get to know each other, it was her third wedding anniversary. So just sending many blessings to Penny for her beautiful relationship that is blossoming after an extraordinary life that she's had. So let me introduce Penny. Hi, Penny. How are you?
Hi, I'm fantastic. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. It's so good to have you here. Now, you've got an extraordinary story in the aspect of alcoholism and how that really played out in your life. Now, so let's get to know you a little bit, Penny. So you're the youngest sister of four siblings, three sisters. You're the youngest. And when your parents were young, they separated, or when you were a baby.
When I was a baby, yes, my parents got divorced. Yes, that's correct.
And tell me a little bit about that experience with you and your sisters. Like once you started becoming of age where you could actually communicate, and some of those first memories, what was it like living with four sisters, and a mother, which is a lot of female energy, without the father? What was that like for you at that period?
Don't forget the animals too, because we had pets and they were all females. So a lot of feminine energy going on right there.
Woo! that might, when you have boyfriends, did they kind of freak out a little bit when they first came into the house?
What is happening here?
Yeah. Whoa, girl zone.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. No, it was I had fun growing up because my sisters were, the one closest to me is 10 years older than I am. So they're all the oldest one is 16 years older than me. So there was quite an age difference between us. And so when I came into the world, they were really, they babysat me, of course, and I was with them continuously. They took me everywhere they went, which was fabulous. We would take me to the pool every summer, like all summer long, we'd be going to the pool. Whenever they went out, they took me anywhere they went. Concerts. I went to my first concert when I was probably 3 years old.
Oh, and, wow.
Yeah, it was amazing because my brother-in-law at the time was a musician. He still is, but my brother-in-law at the time. And we were backstage. I remember being 3 years old backstage and at a Ted Nugent concert. And that was like really big in the 70s. He was really big in the 70s. And I remember being backstage and it was the 4th of July. I remember because they had fireworks people were throwing up on the stage. And the roadies were back there sweeping up the fireworks, trying to get them off the stage away from the performers. And I remember someone saying, "Get that kid out of here," and then being jerked up out of nowhere. So very adventurous younger years, that's for sure.
That's awesome. What a beautiful, it sounds like you and your sisters were quite close.
We're very close. We're still close to this day. We're very close. Yes. And I definitely would not be where I am without my sisters.
Wow, that's amazing. So let's give lots of blessings to siblings that stick by each other. Because you were telling me that your father had alcoholism as well, and that was part of the breakdown of the relationship.
That's correct. So my sisters really grew up in a very toxic environment. I say more so than I did because my father wasn't around when I was a child. But the drunken nights, the being woken up at 2 a.m. to have to run out of the house because dad's drunk again and he's got a shotgun and you don't know what's going to happen, and scary stuff like that. And I'm very blessed that I didn't have to live through that, but I hate it for my sisters. But it made us who we are, right? And that's obviously one of the reasons my mother left my father, was because she finally got the courage to say enough is enough. And it was quite something. I cannot imagine their experience, what they had to go through, but they survived it, and here we are.
And that would have led to, feeling like you weren't getting that father attention, having that father relationship for yourself.
Wow.
And the first time that you began drinking, tell me about that. Like, how old were you? When did you decide? Because it's all decision. I remember the first time I had a drink, and I was 15, and the only reason, I was super fit. I was doing triathlons, and
Wow.
I tore both my patella tendons on both my knees. And I was instructed not to do any sport for the next 12 months. Mm-hmm. And it put me into a bit of a depression, because that was my new life, all this sport and activity. And then all my friends had already, they're all drinking and smoking and stuff, and I was really focused. Mm-hmm. And then when that happened, I was at a party and I had a couple of drinks when I was 15. And that was kind of the start of it. What was that moment for you? What propelled you into that moment to start drinking?
Well, it's kind of funny because I didn't really become, well, I guess it's not true, but I didn't become active in my alcoholism, I should say, until I was in my 30s. In my early 20s, I had a spell in my early 20s, around 22, 23, and I was drinking a lot. I worked for a company, and they had a program, and everyone assembled, and they had this big speech about, if you have any problems with drug and alcohol, please come and see us, and we'll be happy to help you with any problems you have. Well, I started to become a little bit worried because I could tell I was drinking more than my peers. So I went to my manager after that meeting, and I said, I believe I need some help. And he said, do you know what you just did by walking in here? I was like, what? And he said, you just told everyone that you have a problem. And he laughed at me. And it makes me wonder, at 22 years old, if I had had the help that I had asked for at that point, would I have gone down that road? Would I have continued down that path? So that's, not only was he totally dismissed me and shamed me into these feelings. But that was when I was in my early 20s, and I started trying to keep myself in check.
Hang on, wait a second, Penny. Hang on. I'm going to play on this because I really want to make it fundamental for anyone that's listening and anyone that sees this, that if anyone ever comes to you for a problem, never, ever dismiss them. Always be the bigger person and allow your shoulder to be leaned on, because it creates such a painful experience for that person that has actually gone and put their soul, their heart on the line to reach out and say, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And for you, Penny, that's super courageous, especially as a 22-year-old girl. Speaking to, was it a male?
Yes.
So speaking to a male and coming out with that, that's epic. So any young girls out there, even young guys, take note. This is super courageous, but choose the right person. And if they do dismiss you, tell them to bugger off And I'll find someone that actually gives a shit, because that's just wrong. I'm sorry. Please.
Absolutely. No, you're right. You're exactly right. And that's, one thing that I like to express to people is anytime someone comes to you and says they have a problem or they think they have a problem, listen to them, because it could be literally life or death. It honestly could be that. And I don't know how my life would have turned out had I have gotten help earlier, but I know how it turned out getting help late. So really, when I was in my early 30s, around 31, 32, I was working in an industry that was just very fast paced and I worked in the telecommunications industry, and it was go, go, go all the time. And you had to be, one step ahead of your competitor. And I mean, just like any other business, but I mean, this was really when technology was hot, when cell phones were really starting to come out. As I said, it was about 98. And when I first started working in telecommunications, but they played just as hard as they worked, or we played just as hard as we worked. And every night you were going out every single night. So it became nothing to have a drink, 2:00 in the afternoon, sitting at my desk at the office, have a drink. I mean, that's what everyone was doing, because the job was so stressful that's how people handled it. So
wow.
That's really, yeah. And
wow. Can I just ask, Penny, like, I mean, that's a culture, right? So that's a drinking culture that you've been inducted into. That moment of shame that you had with a previous employer, sorry. How did that affect you at this point? Like, was there still resonance of this shame around that there's an issue, and now it's like, well, there's no shame anymore, I'm just going to drive this forward and have fun with it because that's what everyone else is doing? Is that what kind of happened?
Pretty much. I started, after that incident where I was shamed into not getting help, I started thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't have a problem. Maybe I am drinking appropriately. And when you're in a culture where literally everyone's doing it, well, seemingly everyone is doing it, there's no thought of, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this isn't the right way to handle it. And maybe this isn't what other people do. I remember I took a test one time. It was an alcoholic test, a test to see if you were an alcoholic. And there were like 20 questions. And some of the questions were, have you ever blacked out from drinking? Have you ever lost time? Have you, do you, just like these really in-depth questions. And do you drink at work? And I answered almost yes to every single question. I remember telling my sister, like, this test is a joke. Everyone's done this, thinking this is like such a normal thing, right? Everyone's blacked out drunk. Of course. Yeah. Of course. It didn't occur to me. And she was like, that's really not normal. Right. But it was, but even when I took that test, I thought the test was a joke. I didn't think it was real. I didn't think it was valid. So,
and how old were you when you did that test?
About 33, 34.
Okay.
So, yeah. And through the course of my drinking, it in the beginning, around 2002, it cost me my marriage. I wasn't married very long, and my husband was a drinker, but definitely not a drinker like me. And I caused a lot of fights. I caused a lot of contention in the home, and it was me. It was all me, because I was a really mean drunk, which is not good. So I just caused a lot of issues and ended up losing my marriage over it. So you would think that would be an eye opener too, but it wasn't at that time.
And where did that take you? Because whether it's a short marriage or a long marriage, any marriage breakup is a big event, because the wedding is a big event.
It
So
is. It was.
you're not only getting married when you get married, especially these days. You're not only putting vows together of two bloodlines, but you're also spending a lot of money. It's a financial commitment as well.
Yes.
So going through that process for yourself, did you blame you at that point, or did you blame everyone else?
Oh, it was never my fault. I played the blame game so well that I convinced myself it definitely wasn't my fault. It was his fault. And only through sobriety and only looking back do I realize, man, I was really a B. I really was horrible and how I treated him. And, I regret it, but, unfortunately that's the way it played out.
Can I just celebrate you for a second, Penny, because having a reflection over your previous life and realizing that you're the one that created the problems that were there is such a powerful awareness. And it really is a powerful responsibility in your own self to be able to shift things and move things and know that things can get better, but only when you take responsibility of yourself. So congratulations. That's epic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. Yeah. So after that marriage, I started dating someone, and we lived together for about 7 years, and we were engaged. And I was home before he was one day from work, and I was sitting there and I was having a drink, of course. And he was in the same industry that I was in. So it was common for him to see people drinking like this, and it wasn't a big deal. But he came home one day, and I was drinking, and I was watching something, waiting for him to get home. And he just looked at me and he rolled his eyes and he goes, "Oh, I'm going to bed." I was like, "Why?" He said, "I'm just going to bed." And I said, "Because I'm drinking?" And he just walked away. And that was the beginning of the end of that relationship.
Yeah.
So,
and how old were you at this point? Just to give us an idea, because when did you get divorced? You were 30.
I was 32 when we
32 when you got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've gone into another relationship. You were still drinking.
Yes.
7 years, which is quite a good whack of time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then how old were you when that fell apart?
It was about 35, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, around 35. And that fell apart, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And at this point, my drinking started to affect my job. And I was losing focus at work. I was not meeting the deadlines I needed to meet. I mean, you can imagine I'm sitting there drinking all day and working. You can't be that productive when you're drinking and working. Doesn't happen.
I guess in the beginning, in those kind of circumstances, there's a lot of fun involved, and I think this is where so many people get hooked, is that association to we're having fun. So you're working high pressure, lots of stress. People are drinking, and that's creating a fun element. And then all of a sudden it becomes a habit. And then you need to try and figure out how to break the habit. And that's kind of seems to be where you are right now, in that time of your life where now it's become such a crazy habit where you're starting to drink in the morning.
Yes.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
At that point, were you aware that you were drinking in the morning? Like, was there a guilt complex? I think I'm trying to figure out. Was there a guilt complex at that point, or did you just do it unconsciously?
I never really had a lot of guilt around it.
Yeah.
not until I got sober, but what during my addiction, during my drinking, I didn't really have a lot of guilt. I drank it away. I mean, if I did feel bad, I thought, well, I'll just have a drink. And it was to the point of, I had on my bedside table, I had vodka and water mixer on my bedside table, and it was the first thing I would reach for in the morning and the last thing I would reach for at night. It was that bad. It was all day. The fact that I'm alive is a absolute miracle and a true testament of I believe in God, and it's a true testament of God that I'm alive, because by all rights I shouldn't be.
That's an incredible realization to put on yourself, that something that you were doing should have killed you, but it didn't, and you're here. And how glad are we that you are here talking to me right now about this experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know God has a purpose for me, and I believe my purpose is this, what we're doing is to talk to people and hopefully reach someone that is still active in their addiction, or maybe questioning, am I an alcoholic, and really not sure. And for me, the litmus test is, if you're questioning if you're an alcoholic, probably you're an alcoholic, but it's not something I can identify for anyone. They have to identify it for themselves. And
I find it really interesting that when you were going through that period, that you didn't feel any noticeable guilt. Like there wasn't any guilt associated to it, which means that which I think you would assume that you were looking at it as, this is quite normal.
Absolutely. I absolutely thought I was normal, without a doubt.
And when that partner of yours that you were engaged to, when that broke down, what happened there? What was it was there anything there that really woke you up, or did you have to fall further before you had a realization, I've got to shift, I've got to do something?
I had to fall a lot further than that. As horrible as it is, I just, again, playing the blame game as an addict, that's what you do. It's not my fault. It was his fault because, he stopped loving me, or he's got a problem, or it's all on him. It was never my fault. Losing jobs. I started losing jobs, job after job after job. It was never my fault. It was never my fault. And, to look back on it now, it's like, how could I not see this? I mean, it really was just blind as a bat. And just, I was so jaded, but I was jaded from my drinking. I mean, anybody in their right mind, literally in their right mind, would know what you're doing is not right. But I clearly was not in my right mind.
And there was a moment that you were telling me about, that was it during AA that you met a gentleman that then suggested having heroin? Is that correct?
Yes. So I was in AA and I was trying, sort of trying, and we call it what's called 13th step, where you go past the 12 step to the 13th step, where you start dating another alcoholic or addict, and you start drinking together, and you get back into the whole vicious cycle. And I was with him one night, and I said, how do you get higher than this? And he said, heroin. I was like, no, really, I'm serious. He said, no, really, heroin. That's how you get higher. And I just thought, there's no way. There's no way. I would never come back from heroin, ever. And that was a hard reality that I had to face at that time. Was this is it. I'm really hitting rock bottom here.
And it's interesting, like you've gone to AA. Now, was that your decision to go to AA?
No,
Okay. Who helped you decide? Because I mean, it's a big step for a lot of people because you're admitting something.
Right.
So who talked you into it? Now, you mentioned your sisters were very close when you were younger.
Mhm.
Were they involved in that process?
Heavily, heavily. They were involved. My doctor said you need to go to AA, or he suggested it. My sisters were telling me, you're an alcoholic. You need help. You need to get help. And I didn't believe them. I didn't want to believe them because to me, that meant I'm weak, and it meant I can't control something. Something else has control over me. So for me to go to AA was a struggle, and I never really worked the steps during that time.
So you got to was it the 13th step, did you say? Or the 12th
Yeah.
step? The 13th step?
13th
Interesting
is
number.
the bad step, the bad step. You don't want to do that.
So you've met this guy, you've started drinking with him, and then he's like, yeah, have heroin, man. That'll get you higher. Whoop, whoop.
Pretty much.
And what was the moment there? You said, this is bad, but how bad did it get from that moment where he's saying, yeah, have some heroin, man, that will get you rocking and rolling?
So after that suggestion, you would think that would be an eye opener. It kind of was, but it wasn't as much of an eye. It wasn't what I needed, apparently, and God knew that. But one weekend we were together, and we were at this hotel party, and I was messed up, and I was sleeping, and the next thing I knew, I woke up, and he was trying to choke me. He was literally trying to choke me to death. Now, that was terrifying. Terrifying. I mean, I honest to God thought I was going to die at this point. And all I could do was pray in my head. I couldn't move. It was horrible. And for whatever reason, I don't know what happened because my eyes were closed, but he was somehow flung across the room. No exaggeration. No exaggeration. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if he instantaneously jumped off of me to stop choking me or what happened, but he was gone. And I ran out and I got help. And he called me after that. Of course, I called the police and had him arrested. And he called me after that and he said, "Do you know what you did to me by having me arrested?" I was like, "Okay, what?" He said, "You're getting me in so much trouble. Why are you getting me in trouble like this? You shouldn't be doing this to me." Talk about the blame game.
Wow. That's just extraordinary, isn't it? Not taking responsibility of your own actions, basically.
Yes.
That's so. Hang on, we got to get our heads around this. You just said it was over the top of you, strangling you, and by some mighty force, he was flung off you. Now, whether or not you've got some sort of Avengers superpower, or you were praying so severely in your mind, explain that, because that's extraordinary.
I cannot explain it. All I know is I had my eyes closed and I was praying the Lord's Prayer. I could feel my throat closing. And as I said, I closed my eyes, and the next thing I knew, he was off of me. And he was across the room. I mean, he wasn't just like up, he was across the room.
Wow. Wow. It's just it's incredible. Like you try to imagine it, you try to picture that in your own mind, and you hear tales of these types of scenarios. And when you're actually speaking to someone that's gone through that, it's so hard to understand what you've been through in that experience. But you would put it down to the core depths of your soul speaking to a higher entity to create a change in your existence of your survival. Because this is survival. This is life and death that you're facing.
Yes, literally life and death. Yes, yes, yeah. So that was the end of that relationship.
Thank goodness.
Yay! I learned something some point in my life.
And was it this point here that you started to really look at your own self? Was this the bottom, or is there more to go?
This is pretty much the bottom, but I didn't, well, no, I didn't stop drinking, I'll tell you that. Yeah. And I did hit another rock bottom in 2015, and it was self-inflicted. And I woke up and I thought, if I haven't died by now, God obviously has a purpose for me. And this obviously is not my purpose. Drinking like this is not my purpose. And I started more diligently going to AA and really going once a week and going the same time every week, the same group of people. And at this point, everyone had had enough of me. I had nowhere to go. I was living with a really good family friend, and she told me, she goes, look, you've got 6 weeks. You got to find somewhere else to go. And I was facing going to a homeless shelter because I had nowhere to go. And
now, just so we can clarify here, Penny, you needed to go to a homeless shelter. So you were telling us you had no home, you had no job, you were on the bottom rail of life, so to speak.
Yes.
It sounds like that. Did you try to commit suicide? Is that what I was getting there?
I did. In 2015, I had a major suicide attempt to where when I woke up, I was paralyzed from the waist down, and I was paralyzed for 3 days, and I was in the hospital bed for 3 days. And I woke up, I woke up in the hospital room. I was alone and I was scared. And that's when it hit me. God obviously wants me here. There's obviously something I need to be doing. So that's what happened.
Wow. That just gave me a rush of emotions. It's extraordinary that we can put ourselves through such a tormenting process individually. It's not just you, Penny. I mean, I've put myself through certain things in my life too, and I'm sure there's many other people that we don't realize how far we can push ourselves, and the only person that's doing it is ourselves. And we don't realize it at the time. We don't realize that we're the ones that is destroying that God-given gift of life. That we're the ones that we've changed everything, and we're looking at everyone else thinking that they're to do with this, but it's got nothing to do with them whatsoever. It's only got to do with our own aspect of what we're creating. And for you to go through such, it would be a very confronting position to be laying in bed for 3 days, contemplating life, contemplating why you're still here. I tried. Can't I get something right?
Right. Right. Yeah, pretty much.
So that must have been a real driving force for you to get into that continuity of going to AA, to really trying to figure out, well, what am I doing wrong? is that part of the thought process for you? What am I doing wrong? Why am I still here? Why have I been doing this? And how do I get out of it? Is that what was going on there?
That's exactly what was happening. I realized something's got to change. Obviously, something's got to change. And I didn't know how to do it. And the only thing I knew was, of course, to go to AA. That's the only thing I knew to do. So I started going back. And as I was saying, I went back the same time every week, same group, had a sponsor, was doing all I needed to do, and it was doing well.
What's a sponsor?
A sponsor is someone in AA that has sobriety already, so that they've already worked all the steps, so they know what you're going through. They know you can't really BS them because they are a BSer themselves, so they know when you're lying, and they know when you're manipulating. So sponsors are very helpful. At first, you don't really care for them because they hold you accountable for what you're doing and the choices that you're making. But sponsors are very, very necessary, and it's something that I feel like it's an honor to be a sponsor when you sponsor someone.
You're almost like a life coach.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And what happened from there? Because I know there was one more step that really put the pin in the eye.
Right. So as I was going to these meetings, as I said, same time every week, same group of people, same everything. One week I went to my group and I walked in the room and I noticed that I didn't recognize anyone in this group. And I thought, this is weird. Did I get the day wrong? And I realized, no, this is right. This is the right room. And these people were, kids and older adults, and just various people that, like I said, I didn't know who they were. And I finally asked someone, I said, is this an AA meeting? They said, no, this is an Al-Anon meeting. Now, Al-Anon is a support group for the families of alcoholics or addicts. So not only, of course, do alcoholics and addicts have their own support groups, but so do the families. And boy, is it needed. It is so needed. But when they told me it was an Al-Anon meeting, I just stopped dead in my tracks. And I thought, wow, look at what we do to our families. And it's very unjust that we put our families down this journey they don't need to go down. And once I realized that reality, and I realized I hadn't walked into the wrong room, that somehow miraculously God yet again worked in my life, and he put me where I needed to be at the moment I needed to be there. And that was what I needed, to know it's not just me. That is the biggest lie we tell ourselves as alcoholics. The biggest lie we tell ourselves is it doesn't affect anyone but me. I'm the only one this is affecting. Why does anyone care if I drink or do drugs or do whatever? It doesn't affect them. That is a lie. It affects more people than you could possibly even imagine. People that, friends, not just family, coworkers. It affects so many people, and you just are so clueless because, for me, I was so clueless because I was just taken in by that romancing the drink, it's called, where you just think of how wonderful it is to drink and, oh my gosh, party, party, party. And that's not right. That's not life. That is not living. It's not even surviving. It's just existing. And that's where I was. So that's what did it for me.
Penny, I'm I'm filled with emotion. It's look, it really is a beautiful thing. I really want to underline what a beautiful term. It wasn't surviving, it was existing. And there's so many elements to learn from that. That the gift of life is just that. It's a gift. And as human beings, whether or not you're by yourself and you're living at home and you're working online, for instance,
mm-hmm.
you are still connected to people no matter what. And whether you want to accept that, which I think can create further internal problems when you don't accept that, like you said, like you think that, why does anyone else care? It doesn't affect them, but it does.
Right.
Because we're all interconnected, especially family, right? The bloodlines they feel your energy, whether you're on the other side of the world or if you're living down the road, you're still feeling that innate energy, especially as an example from a mother who, men have a difficulty connecting with this amazing sixth sense that mothers have, because they bred that baby in their womb and they have this blood connection that's so thick. and that energetic togetherness that they have. So whether or not you're anywhere in the world, mothers feel this type of pain in their children, that they know that there's problems, and whether or not you have the courage to talk about them, to bring them forward, like you have, Penny. I mean, that there are so many times that you actually step forward courageously to acknowledge, but you just didn't have the gutso to complete it.
Yeah.
And that's okay, that's part of the journey.
Right.
But when you realize that you're affecting communities, that's a huge responsibility to really take on and really embody.
It is. And it's a tough reality to face.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can only imagine that this is the moment here where you raise up your own inner gladiator,
mm-hmm.
and you fight for your existence. It's not just existing anymore. It's, I'm going to exist for a purpose.
Yes. That's exactly right. That's exactly what happened. So my friend who told me I only had 6 weeks to find a place to live was true to her word. And I had nowhere to go. And I lived at the time in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm born and raised there. And my cousin and his husband, who live in Macon, Georgia, had been trying to get me to come down for 4 or 5 years, I guess. They kept saying, come to Macon. You're going to love it here. It's a great city. And I would say, I'm not going to Macon. There's nothing to do down there. It's way too small for me. There's no way I'm going to survive there. Well, at this point, I couldn't stay in Atlanta. I had nowhere to go. No home, no job, no nothing. And so I said, okay, I'm going to move to Atlanta. I will add, there was this creepy guy that I did meet on NAA on a website who kept trying to get me to move to Chicago. And that was creepy. Obviously I didn't do that, but it was just like these tentacles just kept reaching out, trying to drag me back into this life. And I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. So when I moved to Macon, I lived with my cousin and his husband for quite a few months. And he told me the only rule you have is do not drink. If you drink, I will send you back to Atlanta. And I knew that would be pure hell. So I respected him and I didn't drink. I got a great job. I started doing better. I was going to AA. I was doing the steps. I was doing everything I needed to do to kind of get my life back on track. And things were going really, really well. And they still are. I was talking in the past tense, but they still are going really, really well. This is just when it all started to really happen. This was in 2016. So I got a cute little house that I rented for a while. It was a historic home. And after about a year of being here in Macon, I decided I was tired of being alone. And so I went on Match.com, of all places, and I met my husband.
Wow.
We had one date. And it was love at first sight. And it just was a lightning bolt hit me. When we saw each other, we both felt this lightning bolt hit us both. And it was this recognition of, yes, I know who you are. And it was phenomenal. Our first date lasted for 9 hours. We dated for about a year after that, and we got married. But during that time, I told him too, I'd been looking for my church home. I had practiced several different religions, several different Christian-based religions and Hinduism, that kind of thing, and just really was looking for where I felt like I fit. And he said, come to church with me. And I did. And that was a huge blessing, because after going to church with him, I started talking to the missionaries at the church, and we met for about 3 or 4 months, and I became baptized and just fell in love with the church. So I'm completely in love with my church, completely in love with my husband, and things have turned around so amazingly for me since I got sober. It can only be described as God working in my favor and God working in my life, because there's no other explanation for it. And to see my story and where I've been and where now I'm wanting to go, God's hand is in my entire story. And it's miraculous what has happened to me since I've moved down here. That was the best decision I've ever made in my life, was to move to Macon.
It's amazing, Penny. It really is. And what a beautiful ending to an incredible story. And it's not ended yet. There's still so much more. I mean, the part of what I love is that the clarity of your vision of what it is that you actually want to bring into the world now. You've beat addiction, you've fallen in love, you've gotten married to someone that resonates so deeply in your soul. Mm-hmm. Tell me about this Art Olympics, because this sounds extraordinary. Now, these two people have come together. He's an artist. Penny has got creativity flooding out of her from her life experiences. And now you're both wanting to bring in what used to be around.
Yes.
Which was the Art Olympics. And you want to bring it back. And I think it's such an incredible thing to bring back into society, because we only learn from understanding society, right? And Absolutely. Art is a reflection of society. Yes. Tell me about the Art Olympics and tell me where you guys are going, what the dream is, how this passion between the love between each other has really started propelling, moving that forward?
So Whitney is my husband, and he's also an alcoholic as well. So I'd like to say that because we keep each other on our toes, we keep each other sober, we keep each other focused, we keep each other driven. We just really help each other to develop and grow, which is where we need to be in our life now. The name of our company is Whitney Art LLC, and it started with Whitney's vision, and I love it. I completely jumped on board with it when I heard about it. But we want to do an art Olympics here in Macon, Georgia. We believe that it is our goal and our job as an artist and our company to inspire and uplift the world in positive, beautiful ways. And an art Olympic would mean we want to have a representative from every country in the world to come here and to have a beautiful art contest. And again, inspiring and uplifting, and as you were saying, learning about other cultures, learning more understanding, having more grace towards one another. That is our main goal. And we, as a company, we believe that it is possible to end war. It is possible to end war. And what better way to do it than through art?
Absolutely. What an extraordinary vision. And just to give some clarity for the audience, let them know, because I didn't know this even existed. This is new to me. And I was like, really? I've never heard of that. It sounds so incredible. So there used to be an art Olympics.
There was an art Olympics from 1912 until I believe it was 1948. There was art Olympics, and it did kind of what we're talking about, where it brought cultures together, and it was disbanded because they would only allow amateurs to compete. So you would have these big artists like Pablo Picasso, and you name it, and they weren't allowed to compete in the Olympics. So it died out.
Right. Yeah, because just like any professional in their realm, it takes time to excel at something that's extraordinary, that has a reflection of life, and art is so much like that. Any particular art, whether it's film or theater or painting or sculpting, all of that takes time. The ability to really connect with your own soul, because that's what art is. Art in any form is about connecting to yourself and connecting to the world, and having an appreciation and showing your perspective of how you see it from the internal emotions that you feel and the resonance that you have. And having professionals, especially people that have been doing it for a long time, it's amazing to see their art. And in a competitive realm, I think it would be extraordinary to see that type of thing going on, because there would be millions of people in the world that would love to just bear witness to some of the great artists in the world coming together to show their, display their, I guess it would have certain themes. I'm not sure how it would run, but it would, I personally think it would be extraordinary. It's something that you could televise. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Absolutely. We had an art contest the past 3 years. We've had an international art contest, and we've had entries from all over the world. And it's just incredible to see the different art and the different styles and the stories that people tell in their pieces. Just last year, we had a man from Afghanistan submit his art. It was gorgeous. I wish I could describe it, do it justice describing it, but it was just absolutely beautiful piece. And we were talking with him, and he's now banned from doing art because he's in Afghanistan. The government has now banned him from doing art.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a shame.
It is. It is. But we have a beautiful piece by him, and we're very lucky to have seen it. But yeah, so that's one thing that we do is we have international art contests yearly now, just to and again, inspiring and uplifting. We want to see the inspiring art that different cultures have to offer.
So wait a second. You've already been doing this for 3 years.
Uh-huh.
So let's just be clear on this for everyone. Penny has gone through alcoholism for an extraordinary part of her life. She beat it by being confronted by her own wounds and by her own devil inside. She's gone through that, fallen in love, gotten married, created a vision together that she's now running already for the last 3 years an international art exhibition displaying artists from all over the world. And now they want to take it to the next level and turn it into the next Art Olympics. You're extraordinary, Penny.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
What an inspiring life. I truly appreciate you being here, being so vulnerable and truthful and talking from your heart and allowing us into your life. And it's such an epic life. I wish you nothing but success for the next however many years you're going to be walking these planes. And same with your husband, Whitney. I can't wait to meet him one day. That would be an absolute joy. Could you tell people, Penny, how, if they're interested in doing this, I mean, you can utilize this video. People could be watching from all over the world. Someone an investor might actually go, this is a great idea. Let's actually start investing some money into this. How can they get in contact with you, Penny?
Well, we have our email address is Whitney Art LLC 2020 at gmail.com. And we are on Facebook. If you look up Whitney Bennett in Macon, Georgia, that is our Facebook site. And he's posting all the time. We always have new pieces for him to post. We're very active in our community. We give a lot back. We love working in our community. So that's two ways you can get in touch with us, our email or our Facebook page. We also have a website, whitneyartllc.com. That's our website.
Fantastic, Penny. I just am sending you all the blessings in the world. Thank you so much for blessing us with your extraordinary life. I can't wait to hear more about the Art Olympics and how that is coming into fruition for the both of you. So again, Penny, thank you. It's just an extraordinary story, and thank you for inspiring millions.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you, Penny. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.